Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series and our Arsenal Transfer Podcast show, the Arsenal Transfer Podcast show, in which we basically just try and break down and make some sense of the chaos that we see going on throughout the weeks. And we do this every single Tuesday. I'm joined by some guests, which I'm going to introduce to you in a second. But first of all, as always, we are sponsored by Football Prizes, and this week's prize is a pretty decent one. We've got Rob Holding's shirt going for sale, which you can obviously try and win. We'll be revealing which one of our members has won the free ticket into the signed shirt sale. And so far, only 20 tickets have been sold, so you have a really good chance of winning this one if you would like to. So the link will be in the description to Football Prizes website. Other than that, let's crack on with today's show and introduce my guests. First of all, it's the right-hand man himself. It's Drew. How you doing, mate? Are you well? Are you good? You're muted. This is unprofessional, Drew.
First time for everything. I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very good, fella. Very well. You're not that good because of, Sancho stuff.
Whatever. It's fine. Let's move on.
Let's talk about it.
I can't be
what
mad
are
at
your thoughts about
I can't be mad at two things today at once. I don't have the capacity. It's just, let's be mad at in Sancho not playing. I'll be mad at Arsenal tomorrow, vice versa. Okay. Either way.
Fine. So, well, hopefully Arsenal will focus on that first. But no, good to have you here, mate, as always. We're also joined by two of our members. First off, it's Zamir. How you doing, mate? Are you well? Are you good?
Hey, Tom, also I'm good. How are you?
Unprofessional as well. This is a theme. Are you good, mate? Are you well?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very good, mate. Very, very good. Policing the Discord server, as always, you are. Yes, Samir?
Absolutely. Got to get the new joiners to just start putting their feet in the water and seeing what they're thinking.
100%. 100%.
I love judging
people. Who doesn't, mate? Who doesn't love judging people? And finally, to add to our crew today, it's Joe. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
Oh, hoi. Hey guys, how are you?
The first person not to mute themselves. So you're now my favourite. That's how this works.
I saw the mistakes those made, and I just got ready in advance.
So you just learn from those. These guys just don't do that, which is fair enough. Let's obviously we've got a lot to talk about today, but we always like to kick off the show with a little bit of fun. And I had Elliot from the Arsenal Vision podcast on about 4:00. If you haven't guys checked it out already, please make sure you do. But I opened the show by asking him a funny question related to, and it was quite funny because when I said the way I was going with the questions surrounding ITKs, it was great to see that Elliot, of all people, was like, oh yeah, your rating thing, I'm enjoying it. So it's clearly going for something. And people, and Joe, you won't know this because you're not on social media, but I've been doing an ITK rater series as just a little bit of jokey fun. I know that Drew has definitely seen it. Rating basically ITKs out of 10, with the ratings meaning absolutely nothing. None of the ratings actually mean anything. But I'm going to ask you guys of your favourite ITK rumour that you've seen. Now, this may be a bit of a struggle for you, Joe, of course, not being on Twitter. So you may have to invent one, which is going to be even more impressive. But Drew, I'll start with you. What's been your favourite or least favourite ITK moment of the summer so far?
Oh, I forget. Damn it. I forget the name, and I didn't know we were doing this, but someone who was actually very briefly at Yama, and we take the absolute piss out of him in the chat on a daily basis just because. I don't remember his name, but it is. Yeah, you probably do. You can ask Ben as well. You can speak to Ben about it too.
Yeah.
So I
think he actually messaged me about it.
So they know who I'm speaking about. I don't know the exact Twitter handle, so I can't drop it. I won't do that, obviously. But it's just like everybody, it's kind of like, I think now more than ever, because there's so much expectation with the fans about what's going to happen and the rumors that we're going to be spending big money. It's just like, this was like the perfect storm summer for ITKs to come out of every possible piece of woodworking. And it's just like an unbearable. That's why I'm not on Twitter as much as summer. I can't handle it. It's not worth being stressed about it. So enjoy the Euro. Really, just enjoy the Euro. Don't listen to anybody that isn't the usual mouthpieces you should be listening to in case it's close. So
exactly. Speaking words.
And Tom, listen to Tom. Tom's got good advice about ITKs and it's actually hilarious reading it. So
there you go. And the reactions as well. I saw a DM me the other day saying, I actually know stuff. It's just those words. I actually know stuff. I was like, no, I ain't judging. Well, actually, no, that's exactly what I'm doing. I am judging. I don't know why I said that. It's 100% judgment. Zamir, what's your favourite so far?
I gotta give I gotta give Giannis some credit in our Discord. He's telling us we're going after Camavinga and Ben White and Grealish, and I love it. They're going to spend 500 million this window.
Yes,
My
our
favorite
Discord's
moments.
got its own comedy parody. ITK and Yanis is doing the Lord's work. He's doing some really good stuff. Joe, have you had time to invent something, or maybe you even spotted something without any form of social media?
Well, I don't need to, because luckily Zamir and, as you said, Yanis and Vinny and everyone else keeps me informed in the Discord. So
True.
it's like you guys in the firing line and me just in the background enjoying the aftermath. The one, I can't say my favorite, but the one that actually stuck out to me, and it did bring a tear to my eye, was the stuff about Luis Campos, that he was being attached with. For a split second, I genuinely got out of my seat like, oh, this could be great. The excitement, and then found out it was all just nonsense. So
as is most
back
things.
to normality.
Back to normality with a big thud after the Luis Campos stuff. Well, obviously, I think there's only really one place for us to start talking about Arsenal's transfers, and that is, of course, William Saliba, who has had an article written about him, dedicated to him, if you like, by Chris Wheatley and Football London, explaining to us, the loyal listeners and readers of the website, waiting and praying and basically at this point really kind of offering up sacrifices to find out any little glimpse of Arsenal info, that he is, well, open to leaving, open to permanent leaving, loan possible departure, and he's assessing his options, is the quote. Drew, what does he have to do to start to get a chance at Arsenal? How do you feel about this?
Indifferent. So I mean,
nice haircut, by the way, mate. I just saw that.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I only told you about it yesterday.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't even say nice things then either.
No, so I don't know why we're friends. Goodbye. I'm just kidding. No, so for me, I'm indifferent. I get it. Like when your club is in possession of a talented young player who everybody's rated at every level, you want to see them play. But the flip side of that is it's very, very rare that teenagers start in the Premier League for big clubs immediately. And I think this is kind of where you have to strike the balance. I don't know if us not having all the details kind of makes it a little bit more difficult for us to maybe grasp or comprehend, but it could simply just be that Arteta still doesn't think he's ready for the Premier League specifically. Just because he's done well in Ligue 1, at Saint-Etienne and with Nice, does not mean that the club thinks he's ready for the Premier League, because everybody knows it's a very different animal. Players struggle adapting from the Bundesliga, which is the third best league in the world, second best league in the world, depending on who you ask. Players sometimes have to adapt from La Liga. So why is it any different that a young player would have to adapt from French football to the Premier League? So for me, I think it's just that simple. And on the flip side is, if he wants to come play, or when he was signed, if he was given guarantees by the former regime that he would come in and be first choice almost immediately, and we had the regime change, Arteta and Edu have come in and they've backtracked on a former promise from somebody that they're not responsible to, that could make things a bit more difficult, obviously. So if the two camps can't come to a resolution, then you're better off parting ways and letting the player go. And it's difficult, and it sucks to kind of come to terms with, because he, everyone does project him to be part of that, next young generation of, French defenders that could come through. But that the fact is, he wasn't an Arteta signing. And it's not the first time in football that a new manager has come in and looked at former signings of the manager previous and assessed them and said, I don't think this player is for me, or I don't think this player is ready for what I want to do. He may have been ready for what Emery wanted to do, but if he's not ready for Arteta, then we kind of have to trust that a little bit. And if the club think that Ben White is ready, then that means two things. Either one, we're not assessing the players properly, or two, it's actually detrimental to how we rate Saliba. If we think spending money on Ben White is more effective and efficient than giving Saliba a chance, what does that say about Saliba as well? So that's why I'm indifferent about it. I'm on the fence. I don't want to get invested in it. I'm not invested in him because he hasn't played for Arsenal yet. I think it's frustrating that he hasn't, but at the same time, we don't know what we're missing in terms of what he can bring to the Premier League yet. So in that instance, I'm not all that upset about it. The only guarantee for me to be upset would be if we do let him go if it's not just another loan move, if he does move on, you've got to try to get a decent amount of money for him. I'm so annoyed at the fact that we're selling Mavropanos for pennies, and obviously the transfer market's different because as much as it's about how we value our players, that's also what the market values your players and the demand for those players and what clubs that are in for those players are willing to pay. The fact that Stuttgart is struggling financially is the reason why he's going for so little. And if he wants to leave now and Stuttgart's the only club that's really in for him, we have to just accept the fact that we're going to get less money than what we think he's deemed valued at. It's just, there's so many different factors that come to that. So, yeah, again, I'm indifferent. Let's bring other boys in on it. But yeah, I'm not even going to get upset about it. There's no point. We look how good our defense has come through over the last 12 months without him. So it doesn't mean we're going to be screwed and up shit's creek if we don't have him next season. So I'm not upset about it. So,
Zamir, are you upset about it? I want to gauge everyone's kind of emotions around this. Are you upset about Saliba's situation, or?
I was, but
until Drew had a
no, it wasn't Drew. I think I've been saying since the summer started that I think Saliba's gone. No matter what Wheatley says or anybody says, I think Saliba's gone. I think how the club have treated him as a player, if you think about it, do you really want to stay? Would you want to stay? And I think the few videos, the few interviews that he did in his first part when he moved on loan, I think around January, February, he did some interviews. And I think that got under Arteta's skin. And once you do that, I don't know if there's a way back. So I think there is a rift between them two. And I don't know if Saliba is necessarily mature enough to say, my bad, shouldn't have done it. So I think that I don't know if those two will make up, and that's why I think he's gone. Am I upset over it? Yeah, he's a good prospect. Would have liked to see him play at the club. I think he's really good. I think his skills can definitely translate over to the Premier League. I think he should have been given a shot, but if his future is not there, it's not there. I wouldn't be upset with him leaving if we get a proper replacement, like Drew mentioned. If we just let Saliba go and keep the current crop of your Chambers in holding and don't bring in another defender, either a young promising defender or someone who could slot straight into the team, then of course it'll be a typical Arsenal transfer window. Nothing different. At this point, it's not so much this Saliba leaving that's upsetting. It's more so, get the players you want, get them in, whoever they are, and let's get our team set up before August 31st. Let's not wait till 24 hours before the window closes to start panic buying players.
I agree 100%. I want to see some early business done. Sam Trester in the chat says, this fan base sucks the energy out of me every time I open Twitter. It's a rumor that he is considering his future. Pretty much every player during the transfer window is considering their future. It is vague. It isn't definitive by any means. And thank you for the donation, Sam. Always a pleasure. Joe, are you upset?
I can't blame him. Perfectly honest. If I was 20 and I was touted as one of the best young prospects in Europe, I get a big move sign. What was it, 30 million from Saint Etienne?
Around that, yeah.
Then he goes straight back on loan, get himself in order, get a bit more game time. Comes back, obviously COVID hits, his family situation hits. I'm not even going to comment on that. And then he comes back and the management tell him, basically, just stand over there and we'll come back to you in a couple of weeks. We're not sure what we'll do with you yet. Just wait. The first year is gone on loan. Second year, half of it's gone waiting around. He turns up to training. Everyone claims he's doing all right. And still, he doesn't get a look in. He doesn't get included in any of the major squads. Then comes around to Christmas in January and he gets sent back to France. I think from the moment Arteta rocked in the door, he took a look at the squad and said, I'm the new manager. I have to flex my muscle somehow. I have to put down a marker somehow. That guy's not in my plan. Irrespective of how much the club paid for him, irrespective of how well he's considered and the prospect he may be, Arteta probably said from day one, I don't want him. He's not my signing. And it's more or less just been an exercise in futility since then. I wouldn't blame him for leaving. come if an offer comes in. If we make back the same money, I know people in the chat are going to go mental at this idea, but if we make back the same money or something comparable, take it. At the end of the day, the way I look at it is every player is just an asset to the club to bring us back to where we used to be. We can't get overly invested in any one player, especially someone who hasn't kicked the ball for us yet.
Go on, Joe. Sorry.
Sorry. I was going to say he'll be a lesson, and hopefully he doesn't come out like Gnabry or Malin in the future, or we look back and go, "Oh no, what have we done?" If we make back the same money, he can just be a legend told in the club for years to come what not to do with a young prospect. But this has to be, as I've looked at me and Zamir and I've talked about, the club has made so many mistakes in so many areas since probably 2010. So we've had a decade of falling in on ourselves. Lessons have to be learned, and if Saliba wants to leave, he'll be an expensive, sore one, but hopefully we know for the future on the next management in and so on for it to go. We're for our prospects. Let's treat them better than to just twiddle their thumbs and see we might come up with something for you.
Let me be devil's advocate then for a minute, because I feel like the general consensus is quite similar, and it's important to kind of look at the other side of it. Drew, he's a really good player. He's a really good talent. He's shown to be. Goes to France, gets in their team of the season despite playing just 6 months of football there. I know it's very different. He was rated exceptionally highly. From all the French football experts I speak to, they can't say anything really bad about him other than the fact that he's young and he's a little bit immature at times. Arsenal have an amazing player here. I'll throw in the argument, which I don't necessarily buy into too much, but I'll throw in the word Fofana into this as well, which I know is not one that you're a big fan of. Neither am I, but it is still legitimate to say that a kid has gone from the same club in Saint-Etienne to Leicester and been one of the best players in his position for one of the top teams in the table. And Arsenal's centre-back situation is on that side now, Holding and Holding. that is it right now. We haven't signed anyone. It's not like we can say it's going to be White, it's going to be someone else. We haven't got anyone else there other than maybe Chambers. Mavropanos we can expect is going to go. And yet Saliba is someone that can play not only in the right-sided centre-back position, but also the left-sided centre-back position. He can play in a back four and a back three. And he's quick, he's mobile, he plays out from the back well, all elements of a centre-back that Arteta supposedly wants to bring in. There is part of me, even though I want to play devil's advocate here, but there's still part of me that agrees with the side and saying that we're going to be stupidly letting go of a great talent that's not even been given a chance on the top level to show himself.
I mean, you kind of answered your own question. If you levy all if you levy all those points, and I'm not saying that you're wrong about them, and despite all that, if he still isn't being considered as a first choice option, then that should tell you what Arteta thinks about Saliba. So, which should then tell you that it's one of two things: either Arteta doesn't rate him from a technical or tactical standpoint, or two, it's things that are off the pitch, similar to maybe Guendouzi as an example.
Is it right to criticise Arteta then? Because the argument that we're saying here is we go, we want to see him play, but we don't know what he's been doing on the training pitch. However, interesting, in the report that Chris Wheatley put out, he tweeted saying that one of the youth defenders there says that one of the Arsenal youth defenders said that he's the best defender at the club, which I know is only an opinion of a player. But at the same time, is there not a real criticism to be had of Arteta to go, is it just him being stubborn? Is it another Guendouzi situation? Is it another situation?
I think you're probably looking like another Guendouzi situation, like similar age. They've said eerily similar things, in media. Whether they've stepped out of turn or not is another matter. But it could just simply be that. And every manager has their own style. The way that they want to structure a squad, and if you have younger players sometimes that kind of feel like they're owed something before they've actually earned it at the club, some managers aren't going to want to work with that, and we have to be okay with that. Whether we know that's the truth or not is another matter. I don't know if it is or not. Obviously, you don't know. None of us know. I think this is where a lot of the fans are clamoring for that transparency that we wanted or feel we deserve, or however you want to phrase it, to understand just exactly why he's not getting his chance. And I don't think we're going to get that clarity because truth be told, most managers wouldn't just come out to the press and say, his attitude is shit, so I don't want to work with him. They're not going to say that. But yeah, I think you're looking at that kind of scenario. There's a reason why he's not playing. Again, you kind of said every reason why he should be playing, yet he isn't. So if that's a scenario, then there's something he is doing or isn't doing that's keeping him from getting minutes at Arsenal. So, and then you have to ask why won't he then, from his standpoint, from Saliba's angle, why won't he do what's required? We asked the same questions about Guendouzi. All Guendouzi had to do was come to terms, come back to the table, and say, you know what, I screwed up. What can I do to repair my my reputation at the club, because I want to move forward and be an Arsenal player. He didn't want to do that. He was adamant that he did nothing wrong, except he wanted to play the victim card. That's a whole other situation. But you're looking at a potential same thing with Saliba now. Whatever Arteta is requiring of him to do, he isn't doing. So we have to ask, why doesn't he want to do it? So then you can't just question Arteta at that point. You have to question the player. It's easier to question the manager, especially a manager who so many in the fan base don't want to lead the club forward. And I understand that, but there's two sides, to every situation, and without, there's no, smoke without fire. So there's got to be something from Saliba's end that he's refusing to do, so that he can't kind of break that plan. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Ansgar says, Drew, you're giving Arteta the benefit of the doubt. Why not do the same for the player?
I mean, because it's happened twice now, and it's happened twice with the same types of players, and they've said similar things in media post whatever event has gone on, and it's not a host of players that we're having issues with. Do you know what I mean? When if there was like 5, 6, 7, 8 players that we had similar problems with, then you'd have to say this has got to be the manager. When you only have 1 or 2 players when it's happening with, and under similar circumstances, you kind of have to look.
Oh, your mic's gone very weird. You might have to
Staticky.
pull it out and put it back in again.
Mm-hmm.
It's the British way to fix things, and that's how it works.
IT crowd, yeah.
Yes, 100%, 100%. While Drew's sorting the mic out, Zamir, I don't obviously, because I think that you three have all displayed kind of a similar trail of thought, and it is important to kind of look at the other view. Hence why I wanted to bring up Ansgar's comment then. Yes, Guendouzi was a bit of a problem player. Yes, Saliba has done these issues. And yes, a lot of us have called for a bit of a culture change at the club for a long time, and to not have players be big in the club. And I think there is. And I'll give my thoughts in a second while I get off my host pedestal. But if this guy is going to be another situation where he could be the next Gnabry, could be the next Benassa, could be the next Marlon, and again, we've not given him even a chance to show it. Like, there's been no game. That's what gets me the most. That's what I genuinely feel for the fan base of the other side of the argument, is that there is no evidence for me as someone who feels like, look, if he's being really bad behind the scenes, we don't know that, but we can only speculate about it. He hasn't been given a chance yet. So how is it fair? Is probably how is it fair to not say, look, pre-season, get in a pre-season game in a proper match with the first team, or the transfer window is open till the end of the window. Gabriel's going to be away at the Olympics. Give him a chance. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, Tom, there's nothing wrong with that. And correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the club come out and say that it was a mistake that they didn't register him for the Europa League squad in the fall? So I think what's happened is they made a mistake with the situation. Either he should have been sent on loan, at the beginning of last season, or he should have been registered to start playing the Europa League games. And since he's been on loan, he hasn't had a chance to play for the club. What's going to be interesting is, does he get a chance, as you said, to play in the preseason? Because our center backs are Gabriel is out. I think Saliba can play on both sides of defense. I think he can play in a 3. I think he can play in a 4. So is it fair that he doesn't get a chance? No, it's not fair. Should he get a chance? I absolutely think he should get a chance. I think he's going to be a very, very good player. I think there's just and I don't want to speak for anyone, but I think there's a certain level of resignation that the club is just run a certain way for so long, has done the same things with multiple players, and there's no sign of a change in the way we handle these types of situations, at least in my opinion. So I'm not getting my hopes up that Saliba will come back and Arteta will give him a chance. And that's one knock I'll give on Arteta is I don't know if he could deal with contagious personalities. And sometimes superstars have those personalities, and you need a manager who can handle those. And Saliba is going to be one of those players. So I just don't think it'll work out in that way. And as far as Guendouzi is concerned, it's a similar situation, but I don't rate Guendouzi at all. I think Saliba's going to be a star, and Guendouzi is going to be, I don't know, running around like a headless chicken in League Two in a couple of seasons. So I'm not too fussed about it. He should get a chance. He could be a fantastic player. If you've watched him play, even I was skeptical of him until I watched him play on loan again at Nice, and he's a good player. He can upgrade what we have. Is he a day one starter? Maybe, maybe not. But he should be given a shot, especially when we're shopping around for center backs who could play the ball.
Joe, what about the opinion about this idea of there needs to be arrogance in certain players? Some players need to have an ego. Thierry Henry was an arrogant player, and look what he did. Ego is important in players to have that self-belief and self-confidence. And if every player that comes into the team, or every player that's at the club or comes through the youth system, if they've got this kind of little bit of attitude about them, and if that is there and that means they're not going to play, do you think that could become an issue? Or is it just simply a case of if you're not going to bend to or adapt to what the manager wants, then you can leave? And is that the right approach to have?
Well, consider it this way. If you're 18 years old and you have a £30 million price tag put on your head and you're touted around Europe as being one of the next big generational stars, of course you're going to be an ego. Like, the guy's 18. He's now, 20? We were all 18 and we were all young at once upon a time. That's inevitable. It's down to the management to sort of, I don't want to say deal with his petulance, but just sort of take an older head, take him aside and say, listen, we know you're good. We have a lot of faith in you. It's fair enough if you throw a strop once or a while or you get a little big for your boots, but you're in our long-term plans. You'll calm down with age. You'll acclimate into the team and to the squad, and you'll be one of us. I don't think that's ever happened with Saliba. And one of the main things that I take for evidence for that is if he was on Arteta's plans and Adu's plans for this year, whatever happened last year, why then was he loaned out to France rather than sent to, say, a championship club or a lower Premier League club? Like, if we want him to join into our team and we want, which is the big thing you repeatedly say, Premier League proven, why didn't we give him a chance to actually acclimate into the rigors and the expectations or requirements of the English league? Like, even the championship, they do more games than they do more games than the Premier League. Like, I know Ligue 1 isn't a complete drop off, but it's a lot different than, say, the rigors that are required in the Premier League, especially if we wanted them this year to hit the ground running. I think that once missing the first 6 months and then sending them off to France was a not so subtle hint that your days are numbered. Whether it's like I said, whether it is just a clash of personalities, you can say maybe he's been immature, and if he stopped doing stupid interviews, which obviously didn't help his case. But I honestly didn't think and don't think he was ever really going to be part of the plan. Maybe it's 2 and 2 and putting together 5, but I think the fact that he was forgotten about for 6 months, like I said, there is a £30 million player. It's not a case of he slipped through the cracks. He gets sent off to France, so of which he is doing exceptionally well. We all know he made into the Young Player of the Season team, the Golden Boy Award. He's a candidate. Everyone who's seen him says this guy is exceptional, and yet we have basically dithered away 2 of his 5-year contracts. Is it arrogance for him to be a bit fed up and deciding I don't want to work with this crowd anymore? Would we blame him? Would we do any differently?
Yeah. It's really hard, isn't it? Because to put yourself in that position is impossible because we're never going to know if we're real. And you're never going to hear from the guy himself or from anyone else who's been in that position. From my perspective, to give my genuine view now without playing the host position, I do think he should be given a shot. I do think he should be given a chance. I think he should be given an opportunity to play in the early games, especially in pre-season. I am frustrated as a supporter that we aren't seeing this, but I am at the same time, and always trying to be balanced at the same time, very well aware that we don't know what has gone on behind the scenes ultimately. All that we can see and know is what's going on the pitch, which for Nice has been very good. It's not perfect. There are issues. I mean, there's things that he needs to improve on, but very good. And I've seen a lot from Saliba in his loan at Nice that impressed me more than I've seen from the centre-backs that are currently already at the club, which that is one of the big reasons why I want to see him given a chance. And it genuinely does concern me that this is another player that we've basically, from Arteta's point of view, just given an ultimatum in a sense. I don't want ultimatums at Arsenal. I want a culture change, but I think culture changes can be achieved without ultimatums. I think you can achieve a change in culture at the club by working as a collective group, as working out one another. Yes, sure, have a few non-negotiables here and there, and I think they need to be really key. But I don't think you can just say, you've broken this rule, then therefore you're gone, or therefore you're not even going to get a chance in the case of Saliba. I feel like you need to give them opportunities to prove you wrong, prove why they're worth the arrogance that they've got, or prove why they're worth the money that we pay for them. I also think that, Drew, it's important. I feel like we're going to end up spending the entire podcast talking about this, which is fine. But seeing us linked to a centre-back and seeing that as clearly a position, not only just a centre-back, but a centre-back that's going to cost us a lot of money, clearly, as well. Do you think that's further indication then that, look, that they want to improve that position and they are not fussed about blocking or affecting the path of Saliba by going for someone like White?
Well, first of all, hopefully the mic works.
It does, yes.
Okay, well, hopefully it'll work for more than 30 seconds. Secondly, yeah, I mean, a lot of the fans have said that the club need to be ruthless in terms of getting us back on track. So if the club want to go out and spend, like, listen, it's not my money. Sometimes I'll be frustrated about some of the sums being touted for some players, but if the club think that Ben White is worth 50 million and he can come in from day one, start and make us better, then the club should go ahead and do it. If we fall flat on our face, it means that we got it wrong. If it comes off like a good deal, it's a good deal, you know. So I'm trying to not get as emotionally invested in transfers because it's really hard to gauge what is and what isn't a good transfer on the surface anymore because the market has become so bloated. Fees are out of this world now for certain things, or sometimes you get things like Vashishka for 10 million, stuff like that. So it depends, you know what I mean? So yeah, I do think that the fact that we're still looking at center backs means that we're trying to really improve there immediately and have someone come in from day one and make a big difference. And yeah, I think that's it for me. So if they feel like Ben White's the answer for that, then maybe we should go ahead and do it. You know, and yeah, 50 million is a lot of money, but you know, some fans were okay with us spending 45 million on Buendia, 40 million on Buendia, so it's not that much of a difference.
45 is a stretch.
I'm not saying we should. I have seen people say that they think he's worth 40 million plus, and that to me is nuts to have them say that, but then squabble with 10 million more for Ben White. So it just depends on the individual example. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, fair enough. Zamir, is Ben White who you'd be happy Arsenal spending £50 million if that's what it takes to get him? Are you happy with that?
If the
let me caveat a second. Let me say 50 million on Ben White, because this is always the thing that people get hung up on. Arsenal do go out and get the centre midfielder that they need. They go and get a right back. They go and get a backup left back. They go and get a goalkeeper. They go and maybe get an attacking midfielder. Forget about the other positions. Forget about going, but it might affect that. If Arsenal spend 50 million on Ben White, are you happy with that, bearing in mind everything I've just said?
Yeah, I mean, if they go out and get Ben White and cover all the positions, why wouldn't you be happy? He's a talent. He can play. It'd be good competition with Holding. His ceiling is much higher. It'd be a good player to have. Personally, I still think I would go after a more experienced center back. As we were just talking earlier, we need some leadership in that back line. I know everyone loves Kieran Tierney, but how long is Tierney on the pitch? He's usually injured. He's still young as well. He's still maturing. I still think we need someone who has a level head, who could guide some of the younger players and that type of leader. I'm not saying we get a 30-something-year-old, but somewhere around 27, a prime center back who could come in and instantly elevate our back line. That would be my preference. But again, if Ben White, who Arteta thinks and Edu thinks that he's going to have a similar sort of impact, then fix the spine and go get him. I don't see any problems with it.
Joe, does anything worry about him as a player in terms of, you've seen other links to kind of the players across Europe? Jules Kounde, who I believe is a much higher ability player and high potential than Ben White. Edmund Tapsoba again. Leverkusen, I think he would cost more than £50 million, to be honest. I think Bayern Leverkusen don't need to sell. So, I mean, that's a big one. But I think there are centre-backs out there on the continent that you could get and you would say that are arguably better for £50 million. But is it worth going for a homegrown English player with a projected high ceiling for that amount of money?
You said if we got all the other pieces of the puzzle in, then would we get him for 50 million? If all the other holes were fixed and if we had our left back, our right back, arguably a goalkeeper, if we had our central and attacking midfielder, it's more than I'd like to pay, but it's not my money. I think 50 million for a player, 50 million for a player who's was League 2 seasons ago. Now you could argue that's good for his trajectory. But it's just a very big outlay. I know it's not 50 million up front. Like, we don't drop a pallet of money at Brighton and say, here's your 50 million.
Do you think it's big because we're Arsenal? Do you think it's a big amount of money because it's us? Like, if Man City or if Man United or someone like that went and dropped 50 million on Ben White, do you think there'd be as much surprise?
Would Man City or Man United or Chelsea have as many other places to fill as we do?
No, try and put that to one side. And
it's
Chelsea
hard
are being linked with him. Man United are interested in him. Like, Man United spent 80 million on Harry Maguire. City went and spent 50+ million on John Stones. Well, I mean, they're second in the league. They got to the Europa League final. They're in the top four. It depends what you mean by worth it. I suppose it's tricky, isn't it?
That's the way I look at it. Like, if we sign for 50 million. Are we going to see out the term of his contract, or are we going to look to then move him on hypothetically in 4 or 5 years and try to recoup that amount? The honest answer is I can't tell you definitively whether or not it's a great decision. It's not one I would personally make, but I'm not a football manager. These people are much more informed than I am. So I don't think it's for me, but as I said, Zamir, Drew, yourself, you make a decision and I'll follow along in that case.
No, be yourself, fella. Be yourself. Have your own opinion. Let's move on to the final part of the show and the final player that I want to talk about, which is one that I remember chatting with Drew about a month ago. And I think you said the words were never going to happen, no chance whatsoever. And that's Andre Silva. Are you okay, Drew? By the way, do you need to put a light on, or is it like very dark?
No, my the blinds are closed and it's raining outside, so it's not light. I'm good.
Fair enough. Andre Silva, this is supposedly, and from the reports that are out there, 40 million euros gets the deal done, and he is open to a move to the Premier League. So, is this one that would interest you?
I don't know. It's tricky for me.
If we've sorted out every other position on the pitch.
No, I'm not even worried about, like, should we be going after a center forward kind of thing over, say, a midfielder. I know what you mean. Like, if we're going to be spending £250 million across multiple positions, I get it. But it depends. Strikers are difficult. There's, for me, I kind of feel like for base value, I think he's a gifted player. You don't score that many goals in Bundesliga and not be good. But I do think I'd probably put him as similar issues that you could maybe see crop up with him as they do with Oba. Silva is, for me, more of a box striker. He's really reliant on those around him, and he's also really reliant on the system. He also usually he plays in a center forward pairing, usually with more target man. He plays off somebody a lot. So he's not the one that's actually the attacking focus at Frankfurt. He's the one who's playing off the focal point. And we don't have that at Arsenal. And we're not going to be playing with 2 center forwards ever, I don't think, under Arteta. Obviously that could change if Arteta got sacked, but assuming that doesn't happen. So I think there's a lot of tactical contingencies when I look at him as a player, but for base value, I think he's very good. I think for £40 million or euro, I think you'd struggle to find a goal scorer, a recent goal scorer in the market for that amount of money who can show that he can finish when he's in the final third. But again, I think the amount of reliability issues we might have depending on how we play. Also, again, Frankfurt don't play similarly to Arsenal do. So there's that as well. They're far more direct. And as much as I love Bundesliga is far more open at the back because teams press more. So if you break the press, you get more space in the final third. Against low blocks, week in, week out for the majority of the matches we're going to play, unless we're playing a traditional big 6 side or, maybe a top 8 side, he's not going to get the same space. So these are all things I take into account when I look at him as a player. So yeah, for base value, I think he's very good. I just don't know if he's the right player that we need. And of course, I don't think we should be focusing on getting a center forward at the moment. But I am encouraged by the fact that we're looking at signings like that. That to me is a good sign. So I'll take that part of it and say I'm happy we're actually monitoring him if we're serious about it. I just don't know if tactically it makes sense. But for a player, he's good.
Zamir throwing another name in your direction. Sambi Lokonga is a deal that looks like he's going to get. It's the nearest that we've got to being done. But as Drew said there, likes the idea of Andre Silva. That profile of player is a good sign. And I agree with him in regards to that. And also, I think it's similar to Lokonga. Do you think this is the type of move that Arsenal have needed to make? And it shows a little bit of the Martinelli, Tierney-esque kind of signings that we've needed to make more of.
Yeah, no, it's a shrewd signing in my opinion. I think he's a good player. I think he's highly rated. I think he's a different profile to what we have in the midfield, and I think he has a nice ceiling. The only issue is I don't think this deal happens until Granit Xhaka leaves. So I don't think we're buying players till we sell them.
I think we could bring him in before. I think you may not see like a Neves or Basuma type signing.
Yeah, but Tom, we've been close on this deal for how many weeks now? I mean, we've been close to selling Xhaka.
Check the thumbnails of all the transfer shows.
Exactly. So my thinking is once Xhaka goes through, Lokonga will come through, and that'll be a good. I think he'll be our first signing, and I think it's a good signing. I still think we need more in midfield, but it's a good start and a nice, as Drew mentioned, a nice shift in our transfer policy now that we're starting to look at these different types of players.
Fair enough. Final question then off the show as we wrap up before England kick off in about 15 minutes or so. Joe, talk to me about your feeling of how Arsenal are attacking the market with their priorities. That we see Arsenal going for a centre-back very heavily. We haven't really seen any right-backs linked. We've seen rough links to Celik and Aarons previously, and Mazraoui popped up at one point. We've seen barely anything in regards to attacking midfielders. There were the Buendia stuff, but since that, it's gone cold. The Madison stuff cropped up, but it's nothing legitimate really right now. That's gone completely quiet. Erdegaard is off the table. Central midfielder seems to be kind of an area that they are pushing for. But do you think it all does boil down to what Zamir said in the sense of we're waiting to get players out and then we'll focus on getting players in?
Probably. I know we'll probably move out a few players just to know the squad. I heard on Friday someone made a point, I think on another show, that all this hype, the PR hype engine generates something around season ticket time when it comes time to renew the tickets. So this could all just be posturing. I want to be optimistic, and some of the names, Silva really, really excites me. I know he's not a perfect fit for the way we currently sit, but he's 25. He's a huge amount of leeway there. Lokonga, I think, is a brilliant deal. I generally can't see a single negative to bringing Lokonga, because even if we only get a couple of years out of him, we'll sell him on for a huge amount. He's a really good prospect. Madison, I think, is going to be great. In theory, it looks really, really good. But until I start seeing the press photos with their holding up the jerseys, I have to expect this to be the same as many, many years before. A lot of this and then very little at the end. So
I've just got in my mind doing episode 130 of the Arsenal transfer show at 8 a.m. and we've made one signing. That's what's going to happen. I can just see it already. It's going to be a long summer.
Yanis reminded me something in the chat earlier that I think just sums up. Do we all remember the Loic Remy fiasco?
Yeah.
Why are we going back there?
Because that, again, that is a lesson for what we should expect as fans. It's okay to be hopeful. Like, why would we get into being fans if we didn't look for the best in our club? But let's be honest, they don't have the Cronkies, and just Arsenal, the club, don't have the best history. So we need to taper our expectations very, very much.
Joe, it goes back before the Cronkies. I will always, transfer anecdotes I always bring up. Cristiano Ronaldo, the one that hurts the most, the one that hurts the absolute most. And the second one is Kante.
That one.
The two that our 2000s could have been very different. The latter half with Ronaldo, and the last 5 years would have been tremendously different with Kante. But who's keeping count?
Yeah, no, who's lingering on Arsenal's past? No one at all. Anyway, that is going to bring us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, everyone that's tuned in. Much appreciated. If you could drop a like on the video, we'd really appreciate it. And thank you to my fantastic panel. Joe, always a pleasure to have you back on, son. I'm sure we'll see you again very soon, and we'll see you in the Discord server as well. No problem at all. Zamir, always a pleasure, mate. Tell people where they can find you on the socials.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at NYCGooner34. And if you become a member, an expert member, you can always find me in the Discord.
Exactly, as you'll be able to find Joe there as well. One man that you'll not be able to find anywhere because he is hiding until the end of the transfer window is Drew. But thank you so much, Drew, for your time this evening. Much appreciated.
Good to have you. Thanks for being on.
No problem. You can find him on Twitter at LogicLair if you would like to be depressed every day reading something really judgmental about the Arsenal or Bundesliga. No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, Drew, and it's a great follow. So you should go check out his Twitter feed because it's very, very good. And you can check out his stuff at 101 Great Goals when he gets some content out, and myself too over there as always. I'm going to go and watch it come home in about 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, I hope you enjoy the game. We get Bukayo Saka playing, and we get to see Jadon Sancho on the bench. So it's going to be fantastic. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning for the 8 a.m. show, as always. But it's been a pleasure to speak to you, and we'll be back again very soon. And up the Arsenal.